And so that's to acknowledge to everyone that this is being recorded, and that you can choose to participate in that, or turn off your video if you're more comfortable. Good. Welcome so much to this Evolutionary Ritual Community. We come because we are dancing with our grief for the ecological crisis and with our longings for a culture of human-earth mutuality. And we're dancing with our potential to be co-creators of that future that we're longing for. Tonight, I couldn't help but be reminded of so many baptisms that I did when I was practicing clergy. Even as an infant, perhaps you were baptized into the Christian culture. I was sprinkled with water. I blessed so many children with water, naming them, commissioning them as Christians into the world, to become Jesus-like, to know the promise of salvation and eternal life. But today the waters are in crisis. Whole ecosystems in themselves, streams, waters, lakes, aquifers, oceans, in crisis. And of course the ecosystems with them. So surely we need new rituals to help us relate to water more honestly. And to name ourselves, well, I'm going to dare to say as evolutionaries. And we need evolutionaries. We need Christian ones and Muslim and spiritual but not religious ones and atheists. We need all kinds of evolutionaries. Folks committed to the restoration and sustainability of our waters and the ecosystems. So wherever you are, I invite you to speak your name into this evolutionary ritual community. And if you, a significant body of water, or if you can, the watershed where you are. I'm Carol. I'm on the edges of Lake Ontario.
I'm Paul, living in the same edge of Lake Ontario.
And I'm Judith, and I live on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, and I love a river that flows into the ocean nearby called the Neranburan River.
I'm Gertie, and I live on the edge of the Pacific Ocean.
I'm Val, and I'm living and can see Lake Ontario right from my window right now.
I'm Margie, and I'm on the edge of the Barwon River and the Corio Bay.
Bob, also in Toronto, also close to Lake Ontario, but specifically in the Don River watershed.
Carol, and I'm on Lake Ontario as well, and we live on a buried tributary of the Don River, Ashdale Avenue, which was originally actually a tributary, a stream, and you can't see it anymore, but there it is under us.
I'm David. I also live on the Lake Ontario, and Bob mentioned the Don River, and that also has become important to me, that I live close to the Don River.
I'm Desmond, and this is the lake that I'm sitting beside now. It's a little kettle lake in central Ontario, about 90 acres of surface water, 35 feet deep. And I'm here all on my own, happy to be a part of your circle.
And I'm Jared on the other side of the world with Judith on the Western Pacific. And we live on the land of 5 rivers. which I could name, but I won't for you right now. But the Narang Judith mentioned on the on the land of the Yugambeh people, Yugambeh First Nations people here in Australia.
I'm Anne, and I live in Toronto, near Lake Ontario.
Is there someone we haven't heard from? Anyone? Deanna.
Hi, sorry, I'm a couple of minutes late. My name is Deanna. I live in Ajax, and I'm also very close to the Lake Ontario waterfront, and really, really enjoy spending time down there as well as on the Oak Ridges Moraine.
So glad you joined us. And I wasn't sure. Valerie, did you go? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, here we are. Thanks to the waters that we're on, beside, so on. In this evolutionary moment on World Environment Day. And today we're going to engage in an evolutionary ritual called the Dance of the Waters that Sing Thanks to the Rocks. But first, let me show you what we're up to tonight. So here's our agenda. And we're going to be just touching in on World Environment Day as an opportunity in this planetary crisis. And maybe we'll get to know ourselves as unique bodies of water in an evolutionary ritual, just a little better. I hope that we will gain some clarity around some terms that I use in my book, evolutionary moment and evolutionary wisdom. And I'd love to learn more about the power of ritual. So how we're going to do that is to take a look at 3 stories: cosmological, ecological, and spiritual stories of water. And we're going to engage in a ritual, falling in love with water, that name the rocks. In other words, those rocks that are in the way of healthy water systems and a sustainable future. And then we'll break into dyads and share some stories one with another and come back to be in community before we say goodnight. But for now, let's acknowledge the land where we are. Gerard has already begun that, and if we'll go to this next slide. As we gather today, let's remember wherever we are, on whatever continent we are, that we are all on holy ground, which has been blessed by generations of Indigenous peoples who inhabited these lands for thousands of years before colonizers and settlers arrived. And so take a moment now to silently express gratitude, to silently express grief for the bodies of children that were found in Canadian land this past week, unmarked graves, and children who died in a residential school setting. To stop now for 10 seconds and to just acknowledge the stories of these lands that we call home. As a global evolutionary community this night, we affirm our commitment to building right relationships with our Indigenous neighbors based on accountability, respect, just coexistence. May we all learn to live together on our planet home. Thank you. Well, it is World Environment Day, and here is the theme and for this year, ecosystem restoration. So this day, the United Nations has called us to dedicate to growing trees, and we'll just go back one for a bit, to greening cities, rewilding our gardens, etc., changing our diets, but especially cleaning up our rivers and our coasts. And this is the generation that must make peace with nature through thousands of initiatives. This is a very special World Environment Day. This is the beginning of a decade dedicated to the ecosystem restoration. So between now and 2030, the goal is to restore 350 million hectares of degraded terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Some interesting economics around this I found in looking up the research, that it could generate a US $9 trillion in ecosystem services if we can restore these ecosystems. Removing 12 to 26 gigatons of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere could put, just to say it again, $9 trillion back into circulation, or at least reduce debts. The economic benefits, they say, exceed 9 times the cost of investment. So inaction is 3 times more costly than we even imagine. And the World Environment Day has a playbook. Of course, they want inviting us to do 3 things. Of course, local restoration projects, make smart choices in our own lifestyles in terms of buying sustainable products and changing our diets. But the third, of course, is raising our voices in support of ecosystem conservation and restoration. Who could argue with any of those? No, none of us. But I think there's 3 more. And I think that we need a new cosmology of water. So now if we take a look at that slide, I'd like to read to you from my book, The Evolutionary Dancer, Out in and on the Fringe, and how we encourage people through something called a windows walk to open themselves to a new cosmology of water. Stories are like window frames. They both orient one's point of view and limit one's perspective. Like no one window can show you the whole world, no one story tells us all there is to know. And sometimes, like windows break and need repair, worldviews shatter and societies break down. Just as there comes a point when a window frame in a house needs replacing, humanity has come to that time when we must repair the stories that shape our perceptions. Through an environmental framework, what we see is that the climate has determined almost everything about how we in Canada, perhaps you where you are, live, work, and play, and so on. Agriculture, industry, everything has been dependent on fairly predictable temperatures. But you know the rest of that chapter. So we had something called a window on waters. And what we came to that place where Little Cameron Lake, right here, kisses the shore. A second window frame floated among the rushes. At first glance, it appeared as a pleasing recreation of a Monet painting. You can see there were wonderful irises right at the riverbed. The window was double paned, and it called the eye that usually just skims along the surface looking for beauty, like in this next slide, to take a deeper look at one of life's basic elements. And isn't it true? We would stand here and we would look first at the reflection and then at the flowers that might be visible. And then at this next slide, we'd look for wildlife. But biologically, water tells us a very intimate story. Water makes up 74% of our planet, 70% of our bodies. We need 64 ounces of it daily. 95% of all life exists below some watery surface. And water is not limitless. When we drain underground aquifers to irrigate crops, it's lost to the hydrological cycle for thousands of years. By 2050, water scarcity is predicted to be our #1 problem. To the environmentalists, water has rights that must be protected. And this is through, so anyone who would take the window walk must ask themselves this question: through which framework do we view our rivers, our waters, our streams? Water. So here we are. Tonight we're going to reclaim a ritual relationship with water. And because we're realizing that water isn't just a convenience that comes out of a tap, but it's a blessing, it's a grace, it's a catalyst in the alchemy of life itself. I've thought a lot about ritualizing our relationship with water. Certainly in Judaism, getting up in the morning, lifting the water to one's face, so many rituals, part of everyday life. And the religious rituals using water are ageless. They've marked all of our passages, birth and adolescence and death. But they have been human-centric rituals. If you've ever gone into a Roman Catholic church or come to the baptismal font, we say, remember your baptism. It's a cherished act. You know, it commissions us to a relationship with the divine source, a love, a God, and the neighbor, the self. Again, a relationship between human and the divine. Many of you will know more than I do about indigenous rituals and different spiritualities that use water, celebrating the blessings of water or to bless the water. And this expresses a relationship between the human and the land. The power of a ritual, however, is so important to stop and think about. And I hope we can do some more of that. For example, ritual teaches a tribe's explaining story. It creates a culture, an attitude, a relationship, a whole society, as we've related to water in the past. And so I find myself, and probably many of you, doing something that we can call evolutionary rituals. Stories that, rituals that offer new stories and new understandings of our identity or our abilities to navigate these rocky times of the planetary crisis. I'm going to invite you today to step into a stream of consciousness, one in which what we're about is restoration and the protection of waters and of our biosystems. I think this is our life work at this time. So here's a little preparation for our ritual, things that you will need. I have here a pitcher of water. And you might have a glass of water. I have a large bowl waiting to receive it. And I have rocks, and you may have one rock with you. Or if you don't, just reach for something hard that you don't feel comfortable putting in water. And I have a branch of greenery, and that's going to be used to dip into the water. However, if you don't have any of those, your choices are many and all of them are acceptable. You can watch, you can dip your hand in the water and throw that around when you see us from doing what was called an aspersion. So make yourself comfortable. Let this be a ritual for you, whether you have all the fixings or not. A ritual is something that's deep within us, as well as the bits and pieces that we bring together. Also for this ritual, we have 3 storytellers. And so we're going to remain unmuted. And so that there won't be any stumbling over the Zoom connections. And I'll invite each of the storytellers in turn to share. Yes, we're going to remain unmuted. I think this is an experiment in evolutionary ritual where I'm not responsible for keeping all of you in a very reverent frame of mind. And where reverence is so much broader than what it was once upon a time. Wouldn't it be reverence if a cardinal flew in through this window and out the other door? How exciting and wonderful and hilarious and delightful. And that too would be reverence. And if somebody's phone rings, how sacred that somebody is wanting to be in touch with you at this time. So you get my drift. In an evolutionary time, I think we opening up, breaking through to know that it's all holy. All right. And there's one more thing to this ritual. And it's a chant. And I'm going to invite you to learn it and to respond. Bob is going to be the tech wizard, getting this slide up on the occasion when you're called to sing this chant. So we'll do that, and then I'll tell you one more thing that's on the slides with the chant. Oh, thank you. So it goes, come, 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 unity. Come, 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 unity. Come, 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 unity. And if that's not enough for you, feel free to bang some drums or clap your hands like the water up against the rocks in the rapids, stomp your feet, whatever is right for you. Because this is a ritual celebrating the opportunity in this planetary crisis. Okay. I'm not sure if you tried it or not, and I don't have to hear you all, but I do hope that you'll enjoy it. So, come, 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 unity. Come,
Come, unity.
Come,
Unity.
Unity.
Come, come,
Community.
Awesome. Right. And so there will be one part to your
Dog's barking.
response for these, as we process through this evolutionary ritual. Along with the words to the chant, there'll be something called evolutionary wisdom, and you'll be invited to say that and to speak that, not just across Zoom, but across the world, and bring that into power. And evolutionary wisdom is something I wanted to bring to our rituals tonight because in my book, I conclude each chapter with just a bit of the things that I learned in all of this. And I call it the evolutionary wisdom, the things that are pushing me forward into the becoming dance. All right. I'd like to welcome Norman from Halliburton into the beginning of this ritual. And I'm going to do what I call an awakening now. I invite you to take a deep breath. We take in the gift of oxygen, cosmic element. We ground ourselves in this time and moment and in this global community. We gather tonight to mark humanity's passage from the Anthropocene to the Ecozoic age, to celebrate love that, like groundwaters break through dry riverbeds, is springing up in this planetary crisis. Waters that are regenerating our infinite potential, making us one with all nature's work, the work of restoration. On World Environment Day, we step into a stream of consciousness towards regeneration and restoration of our ecosystems. And we name ourselves one with the waters. Come, community. Come, community. Come, community. Okay. Well, I'd like to invite you now to hear the first story, the first cosmic story of water from Judith.
At this point, if you'd like, you might want to change to the gallery view so that we can see everyone at once.
Lovely.
Okay.
Okay, so in the beginning was water, an alchemy of primordial elements. Water emerged from the dance of hydrogen and oxygen, scattered in the chaos and disorder. It was the explosive death of the first supernovas. The spawn of stars, water, ever leaping between solid, liquid, and gaseous states, is older even than the sun. In the beginning were cosmic waters, flung far and wide, stretching universe, spun by cosmic winds, shaped by the curve of gravitational compassion. Stars' elements became planets. When vaporous gas rising from one young molten planet mixed with the cold winds of space, there was rain. After millions of years of cosmic rains and storms, great tidal oceans circled this third rock from its day star, the sun. In these electrically charged chemical cauldrons of cosmic waters was unimaginable potential, a cell, a life.
You may wish to pour a third of your pitcher's water now into the bowl. And as we pour the cosmic story of water into our vessels, we'll look at this slide and we will remember this evolutionary wisdom. From chaos and disorder emerges peace and order. Come, unity. Come, unity. One more time, come,
unity.
Now I'll ask Paul if he will read us a second story, Earth's story of water.
A single drop of rain, quiet aquifers, great lakes and flowing rivers. Water is the wellspring of our bioregions and lifeblood of the planet. 99% of life forms exist in or beneath the waters. 77% water at birth. Humans are bodies of water. Water helps circulate nutrients, eliminate poisons, transports energy. We cannot exist more than 4 days without it. Oceans, lungs of the planet and source of most oxygen, are larger even than the atmosphere. Water makes Earth the mother that suckles plant, animal, and human alike.
I invite you to take your pitcher and pour another third of the water into your vessel. And as we pour Earth's story of waters, the womb and habitat for countless beings into those bowls, we remember this evolutionary wisdom. What we do to water, we do to ourselves. Come, unity. Unity.
Unity.
And what the age of industrialization, of so-called progress, has done to the waters, we've done to the whole Earth community. So as you name now some beliefs or actions or policies or organizations that threaten the vibrancy, the resilience of your bioregions, your watershed, you can take a rock and place it in your water. And I will add the rocks here that you name. So, would anyone like to start?
The Viva energy creating dredging in the Coria Bay.
Development on the headwaters of the Carruthers Creek watershed in the city of Pickering.
Gertie, you're going to unmute yourself and share that story with us again, please.
Sorry. Fish farms on the northern part of Vancouver Island.
Thank you.
We can treat our water systems as sewers.
Nestle Corporation, who ravages watersheds, emptying them out, selling that water back to us at thousands of times.
Presence of blue-green algae in lagoons nearby where I live due to pollution and desecration of the waterways.
Damming of the Peace River.
Burying of watersheds in urban areas.
Drilling in oceans with a high risk of gas or oil leaks.
The
Exhaustion.
destruction of mangroves around the coast to create
Malcolm.
Desertification of the Colorado River watershed. The river doesn't even reach the Gulf anymore.
Have you ever heard of Carol Kilby?
The rocks could continue to pile up and to pile up and to pile up. So let us hear a third story, the story of the spiritual story of water from Carol Watson.
Like the deer pants for the waters, so my soul longs after you. Universally, water is a symbol of the transformative power we seek in life's rocky places. That element of life that perseveres, claps against, rushes over the rapids, wearing down over time the sharp edges, and in its dance to the future finds its voice and sings a song. Cosmos, god of ancient Greeks, emerged from the womb of the primeval waters. Judaism tells how spirit hovered over the raging waters and brought forth the world. Buddhists seek serenity and generosity of spirit in water offerings called yon chap. In Judaism, the mak and mikvah are purifying and healing ritual baths. God is the great underground river that no one can dam up, Meister Eckhart says. In evolutionary spirituality, water is not a symbol of the sacred. It's not sacred because we declare it so. Transforming rocky desert to green garden, embryo to laughing child, in and of itself, water is blessing, grace, catalyst in the alchemy of life, a manifestation of the divine.
And so we pour the last third of our waters into the bowl. And as we've poured these waters, this is a divine source of life and transformation into this vessel, let this evolutionary wisdom wash over us now. Like the banks hold the river, we hold one another. Come, come, unity.
Community.
Come,
Community.
And so we dare to wander into the water and following our gratitude for life, driven by our grief for Earth's perils and this destruction of the water systems, we step into this ever-flowing stream of the evolutionary dance. And so I invite the first reader to lead us in this naming ceremony, where we're going to listen and then dip whatever branch or your hand into the water and sprinkle it around your head, your room, your plants, wherever. Beautiful, Margie. Okay, Judith.
Cosmic waters that precede and create us. Rain consciousness of all that we are and are ever becoming in this evolutionary moment.
Yes. Paul, continue this ritual of naming ourselves.
Earth's waters that carry life from age to age, lift us up to wear away chaos, to wash over what poisons possibility.
And Carol?
Sacred waters transform rock to soil, hunger to health, acquiescence to song and dance. Carry us from this time as evolutionaries, as waters that sing thanks to the rocks.
And we'll close with a rousing chorus of come,
Community.
community.
Community. Harmony.
There.
Creative
Thank
chaos.
you, everybody, so much for sharing in this ritual tonight, and invite you to now go into a group and breakout groups, which I think one of the mystics said was really an opportunity for breakthrough. And here are the questions that you can share with another person, or you can have your own conversation. But the question, Bob, if you'll show us that, is where did you feel resistance or chaos in this particular ritual? And more than that, was there an opportunity in that chaos? So into the dyads, and we'll call you back at 25 after.
Carol, I have to apologize.
That's okay. We're going to go, can we go into dyads?
Well, no, I should have seen this before. I'm sorry. I don't have a breakout room option activated.
Okay. Okay, let's come back then to gallery view, everybody. And invite responses to the ritual. Was there chaos or resistance in you in that ritual? Was there an opportunity in this ritual for something new? or whatever is dropping in for you.
Mhm.
When we were talking about the things that, dropping a stone in the bowl to name the places where there's damage to water, I found myself thinking there's so much damage, but I can't think of a particular incidence right now. It was like, I think sometimes there's so much damage, it's almost like you can't quite narrow it down and name that. And I thought, oh, that's not a good position to be in. You want to be more watery in your response, more able, more fluid, to be able to say, oh yes, this is the area, this is the damage, this is the nature of nature in my area here. And I mean, the Don River in Toronto has gone through quite a transformation, and Dave and I have walked up there in the fall and seen salmon, running up the river. And so you have this sort of sense that, oh, things must be kind of improving and getting better. And I think they are in some quarters, but overall water is in great jeopardy on the earth, So anyway, that was just the one thing that occurred to me.
I love that you named chaos and opportunity. Thanks, Carol.
I'll speak.
Thanks, Deanna.
I found it a little chaotic and challenging when we first started singing together. It's a very challenging thing to do on Zoom, to have many voices coming together. And part of me wanted us all to be singing at the same time. So there was just a sense of discord. But as soon as I let go of that and just went with the flow, it didn't matter anymore if we were all singing at the same time. I could still hear different voices, and mine was part of it. So it was a nice settling into whatever rhythm or lack of there was.
In fact, I thought there was a lot of humor. People were smiling after we sang, and I thought there were a lot of energy that came out of that discordant singing that we did.
Exactly. So that was the challenge and the gift. Yeah, thank you.
And the gift, the creative gift for me was near the end, some of us got a little bit more creative and started creating harmonies. Did you hear that in the last 2 or 3, or the last one? Yeah. And I thought, wow, if we all created harmonies and just kept singing and cacophony of a common community, I think it'd be a wonderful expression of creative joy. And that's what I felt in the third one, especially.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Carol, my resistance came with the singing of come, 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 community. I really don't believe in unity. I don't know that there's such a thing as unity. And even when you talk about H2O, that's not a unity, that's a binary relationship. And that to me is what it's all about. So come, endemic binarism.
This is such an important resistance. I'm going to take the opportunity just to say that one of the powers of the universe by which it continues to expand in its wholeness is differentiation. And so the fact that there are holes within the whole is a very complex thing that I'm struggling with. But thank you, Desmond. That's such an important one to bring up.
I'm loving the fact that there is absolutely no resistance in me to being in this ritual, which is taking this whole story and reflection and celebration and listening to the challenges around water, taking it right out of a religious setting, as it were, and bringing it into this place where everything is holy. and particularly where we're claiming this kind of opportunity for us to be challenged environmentally in our commitment and, you know, the action that now is invited of me in sitting in this ritual. And I just love that there is absolutely no resistance in me to being here in these shifts that we're talking about.
Beautiful. I think I could add to that too, to Judith. I didn't find any resistance at all. In fact, I was quite glad to see ritual in this manner. And I think I would love to see this more in our communities, that we really ritualize this reality that we're living in. So I was very grateful for that.
Same here, Gertie and Judith. And I am not experiencing resistance at all because last night was World Environment Day here in Australia, and I went to the Faith Ecology Network on biodiversity and the need for awe and wonder. And it was very heavy and very painful to be part of. And to have this ritual with its pain as well, but having this ritual now to me is like an amen or a kind of an exclamation mark of celebration and gratitude for what is.
I felt no resistance to the ritual, but I would like to talk about unity just as the goal that isn't yet, and use the latency that we experienced when we tried to sing together. Like our understanding is that harmony and blending and simultaneity are the way of life. So that would be unity. But what we've demonstrated tonight around the world is that there is latency, and it has taken me about 50 years to finally understand how important it is not to waste water. And that's latency. My father was a conservationist in the 20s, and here his son is 60 years later getting it. So that's life, and that's chaos, and that's generativity. It's all heading towards unity. So that's my hope, and this was an experiment in chaos and unity tonight. I appreciated it a lot.
These are very messages. Oh, sorry.
I see we can go home now. We seem to have somebody
Is that
said
you, Paul?
No, another thing I was thinking, like, you know, about water is that, you know, it just seems so plentiful, but it's not plentiful at all. And we're in very big risk of losing our water sources all over the world. So just it's one of the endangered species. Right now, it's kind of a reality.
Let's hear that phrase again, Gertie. Water is one of
the endangered species.
When have we heard this?
Yes.
Carol, can I share my story? In India, I lived for a number of years, and water came in a 20-gallon oil drum that had to be cleaned and sieved, and that's the way we lived for a number of years. When we left India to come back to Canada for a holiday, we stopped off in Frankfurt and stayed overnight there in a hotel. And my two children, who were then 7 and 9, the 9-year-old came running in and said, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, Martin is wasting water. He was in the bathroom turning on and off the taps."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good for you.
Thank you. Well, I am almost speechless at this experience of sharing World Environment Day with you. And this beginning of an exploration into our own actions, our own responses. And so to take away a word that I take away from this, and with gratitude to all of you, is this deepening understanding of that word response hyphen ability to water. The ability that water gives me to for everything, and the world around us. But what is my response to it going to be? These are chaotic times, and we're all singing like water's rushing through the rapids right now. And if we can hang on to some joy and hold each other like the riverbanks as we go, this would be my wish for all of us tonight. So Kamla, who wasn't with us visually, but is a wonderful person who's there. Valerie, to you. Norman, to you. Gertie, lovely to meet you. And to Gerard and Judith in Australia? Yes. And to Margie in Australia. To my compatriot in the Taking Down the Pulpit, Desmond, and Bob, the techie that just knows no bounds. We managed through so many things, and he does this for so many people. Ann Kerr from Ruah, and Carol Watson and Dave Abel from a Toronto spirituality group called Ruah. Deanna Fry, who has the most wonderful, important experience and knowledge in Indigenous pathways. What a rich gathering this has been. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night now.
Thank you, Carol.
Good night, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
Good to see you, Desmond.
Yeah, thank you. Good day, mate.
Thank you,
Hello,
Carol, too.
Gertie.
And Bob.
Blessings, everyone.
Yes, thank you,
Good night,
Carol.
Norm. Good to see your.
Yes, good to see you too, Paul.
Mm.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
the.
your madness, Carol. Thank you for your evolutionary madness for us.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Judith.
Yeah.
I'm going to find playmates.
Yeah. Bye now.
Thanks, Carol.
Yeah.
Good night.
Valerie Griffith, yay, you made it. Thanks to you and Bob. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Good night, Ann Kerr.
Night.
Good to see you, Ann.